Don't forget our gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed.
Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light!
Hi there, Gemini. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 7th through 13th. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that everything is going your way. I truly do. This is an interesting week in that it starts off a little crazy. So we have Neptune squaring Saturn, which is still an ongoing kind of energy that we are thinking about what was going on in our lives in 2007, how those different experiences have shaped you to be the person that you are now. Likewise, maybe what are some of the patterns that are presenting themselves that can be handled differently this time with a better effect? How do you use the skills that you've learned or the ones that you need to implement now in your current situation, your life stage now, that if you look back at whatever happened in 2007, you're not one of the ones that I think would have too much of this from 97, but 2007 for sure. If you could do things differently, what would you do now? How would you react? How would you do things differently? Would you do them like this or like that? That's the kind of energy that we're starting off the week with. The Uranus-Pluto square is still about a degree apart, so they're still in close enough proximity to where when it is activated as it is now, it brings some disruption with it, and that's what's happening. It will be somewhat easier to deal with because this will show up on the 6th and the 7th, but it's not such a problem as it was before. I could say, obviously, that if there are situations that you haven't corrected from 2007 or you haven't changed or grown or evolved, which I doubt it, that you would miss the opportunity, of course, to make different decisions today. But maybe there are some personal situations, some feelings that you don't express to anybody, but deep in your heart, you know you would never have done what you did then if you knew then what you know now. Also, we're working off of the cardinal T-square energy that will be in effect until about that new moon on the 11th, which is in Sagittarius, your solar 7th house of relationships, committed partnerships, marriages, business partnerships. This is a much more committed energy. So if you don't have a relationship that is that permanent, it could be your relationship with one of your family members that kind of takes its place. It would have to be somebody close enough to you that, look, if you have a girlfriend that never talked to you again and you only meet up on Fridays at IHOP, I doubt that would really change your life a whole lot. But if it is a situation involving one of your parents or relatives or somebody that through or by way of or by virtue of a family connection or some close partnership would affect you, that's what we would be talking about here. Mars in Libra, your solar 5th house of romance, creativity, children, your siblings, cousins, neighbors. This would be the same energy that is stimulating what we just described here. So with that said, Monday, the card that you've drawn is the Hierophant in reverse. This could be somewhat oppositional in that Mars in Libra, which Mars is not really that excited about being in easygoing and diplomatic Libra, is opposing Uranus in Aries, your solar 11th house of your friends and your group associations, your network, your children's networks. If you stay at home mom, for example, this is just an example, and your children, one of your kids is going through some romantic situation or some difference of opinion that seems to affect their group of friends, their social connections, their standing on their internet kind of platform, that's what we'd be talking about. So this is part of that Uranus-Pluto square that has been in effect for about the last 3 years. So I would imagine that if you have an older child, that this would be something that they might experience through vicariously. You could be experiencing through that. There could be a change in the situation. Like if you have kids that are old enough to be married, there could be a divorce that is imminent. And for those of you that are married at this time, whose relationships are not rock solid, this is somewhat destabilizing. I think you can agree. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to turn into a full-blown divorce. It depends on what commitments you have, whether you're married or just partnered up and cohabitating, whether this is a roommate kind of energy. But there could be a need to either get things back on track and back into what is structured, what is more, what's the word I want to use? Something that is more traditional. Maybe that's where you need to get things back on track too. And it could be that there are some of you out there, I suppose, that are experiencing either in yourself or through someone else the fact that they need to shake it up a little bit because you really don't want something that traditional, or vice versa. They want something more traditional and you're like, look, it just occurs to me that this is not what I've always wanted, and so something has to be adjusted there. On Tuesday, the card that you've drawn is the Seven of Wands in reverse. And this is where you feel a little bit defeated, or that you can't really hold your own, or that you're having a hard time keeping things together. But I don't really believe that that's exactly the case. I think this is more the way that you feel or how you perceive what the situation is around you. Maybe you feel like everybody's arguing all the time in the family. Maybe there is some recurrent discord that just doesn't seem to ever go away or be resolved. Tuesday, we've got Mercury and Sagittarius. Again, your solar 7th house of marriage and partnership, committed relationships, stable, somewhat persistent relationships, squaring the North Node in Virgo, which is your solar house of home, family, your stability in life. And whenever there's a square, we know that it is challenging. And so the challenge here could be to express yourself in a way that you feel the need to, or that you feel like you need to look out for number one, and that's you. And the other person is like, no, that's not what I signed up for. And you're like, wait a second, it is my life, right? I think that this is workable in that the Sun in Sagittarius trines Uranus in Aries. And even though that is somewhat a little more out there, it could just be that you want to spend more time with your friends and less at home, or it is that your spouse is more at home with his friends and not with you, and that this is something that needs to be corrected. Maybe you are very traditional, maybe you're very outside the box, but somehow there is an expression of the need to want to go out there and be with other people, and regardless of whether it's happening to you in your relationship or with your children, your downline, your grandchildren, or a sibling or a cousin, or anybody else close to you, that is probably most of where that energy is coming from and what it's directed at. It seems like somebody really wants to stay home or keep the other person home, and that's like the other person is like, girls just want to have fun. And we're like, shut up. We don't get to sing that song forever. Not in the real world. On Wednesday, we've got the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, and this is a card that indicates that there is, again, a sensation of not feeling on top of your game, that things are not going your way. And maybe truly the Sun in Sagittarius, again, that solar 7th house, squaring Chiron in Pisces, your 10th house. Maybe you don't want to work with this individual anymore, or you feel that they're all work and no play. Maybe you're all work and no play, and maybe your partner's trying to have more of a romantic relationship with you, and you're like, I gotta work though, and then you're the one who brings home all of the work that you do until about midnight, and that guy's asleep on the couch over there. So just really try to find a different way to communicate what you need and what you're doing. Compromise would probably be very helpful here. It looks like it's almost requisite, because Mercury is moving into Capricorn, your solar 8th house of the fruits of that relationship, the passion, whether it's there or not, it needs to be rekindled, right? We need to stoke that fire. Somebody wants it. So we need to make sure that here we take into consideration that when we're in a relationship that we want to be in, a partnership that we're choosing to be in, that maybe it does require a little more structure. Maybe it needs to be a very serious talk here. Maybe your man is going to take you aside and say, I know you're fantastic and you're amazing and you're one of the best attorneys out here, but you bring the work home. Where is my wife? I want to kiss her. I want to touch her. How about let's have a romantic meal with candles, even if we're opening a can of SpaghettiOs and the kids are having a party and destroying the family room, but I want to be alone with you. I want to stare at you. And that might be exactly what needs to happen to help preserve the fidelity of this relationship. On Thursday, we have the 10 of Cups, which is a wonderful card all on its own. So I know that the ability for you guys to work things out is there, or it could be one of you wants to work it out and the other one is going kind of crazy. That could happen too. Only you know what that relationship is. And now if you're not married and you're not in a steady relationship, this could indicate that what you're hoping for, a marriage, hasn't come to fruition yet. That what you want is lovely family, 2.5 children, a dog, a house, or a castle, and a rainbow of cups. So whatever it is that you want there, maybe it isn't coming to pass yet, and you're really wanting it. You're really waiting for it. Maybe some of you have been trying to have children and it's not happening. Well, quit trying, just have sex, and you'll see how quickly you'll make babies most of the time if there are no underlying issues. Okay, what I'm saying is quit trying. Just go have a wonderful, passionate night, and you'll see as soon as you quit trying to have children, that's when people get pregnant. How do you think that happens with kids when it's like, we didn't want you to have sex before you're 18? What is this? And everybody's having a shit fit because a 17-year-old is pregnant. And of course, that's not a good thing. But at the same time, we can all kind of laugh and say, well, that's what happens when people have intercourse and they're not thinking, right? So I'm not saying that it's a good thing to have children out of wedlock, and I'm not wishing babies on children. I'm just trying to give you a kind of tongue-in-cheek view of what it is that brings children about, right? It's not always the milkman. So Mars and Libra opposing Uranus and Aries here at this point. Libra being your solar 5th house of children, romance, and creativity. Of course, you're trying to have babies. For those of you that are not trying to have babies, you're trying to make a business, build a brand, do something creative. Maybe you're an artiste. Maybe you're a dancer. Maybe there's something that's trying to express itself. Uranus and Aries is like, yeah, but think about what your friends would think if you were on a stripper pole. We're like, holy crap. Yeah, probably, exactly. Friday, we've got the World card here upright, and this is where we've got the new moon in Sagittarius, that solar 7th house. We can make another attempt at either taking a relationship to the next level, attempting again to not try too hard to have children. But whatever it is here, there could be an element that it is related to, of course, your children's marriages or a children's divorce, something going on that isn't the best. But I think that that's only because this new moon is fraught with a little instability. And that's probably, thank you very much, to Mars and Libra in quincunx aspect to Chiron and Pisces. Again, there seems to be this work is taking somebody away. Maybe work is too much. And then this relationship, the romantic side of it, can't really come forward. Maybe it's just not obvious because everybody's tired. I'd be tired too. I'm tired right now. So the World card here is just reminding you that these are all cyclical things. Sometimes even when we have to face the idea that our beloved children are divorcing and they have children, your grandchildren are now at risk. Part of the thing that you can do is not try to convince them that they should or shouldn't do one thing or stay or go. Just be there for them so that these children don't have to experience the heartache, so that they know it's all okay at Grammy's house, or that you're just saying, look, I want you both to be happy. And if being separated and being divorced makes you both happier, then I know my grandkids are going to be happier when you're not holding things over each other's head like ransom. And if you've ever seen a dysfunctional divorce, you know what that will do to kids. People will try to work it out and say, just cut me loose, let me get divorced, like what happened to me. Let me go. I need to leave now. This isn't working. And then, of course, when mountains are made of molehills, or you were the one willing to do the bulldozing and the other person had to piss off, you could see how cycles will become somewhat protracted because they don't need to last that long, but somebody's angry. So don't fill the situation, whether it's yours or theirs, with anger and resentment. Help it just smooth over so that everybody can move forward, especially when there are children involved. They're always more important than any of us will ever be. On Saturday, we have the Devil card in reverse, and this is an indication that if you don't stand up for yourself, if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will either. If you're saying, look, I need a divorce, you're just going to have to deal with it, then it might require you actually going to see the attorney and getting it started and saying, I love you, I'm sorry, but it's not going to work out. And so maybe it requires some initiative. Likewise, some of you could be in relationships where you've taken the role of sloth, or you're just not doing anything anymore. You don't clean the house, you don't brush your teeth, you don't make meals anymore. You're not handling your responsibilities. You're half asleep, scratching your ass. Well, that's a good sign that something like the Devil in reverse is going on. Sunday, we've got the High Priestess in reverse, and this could indicate that we've got a situation where someone is not using their faculties or intuitive resources to be able to figure out what the hell is going on in this relationship or in this friendship, partnership, or other very stable but committed business relationship here, that there's something going on, and it seems like somebody isn't taking the hint, or hints are not going to work here. You can't just sit there and expect that telepathically you can communicate your needs to another person, vice versa, as well as the fact that you need to state your intentions, and that if somebody is saying words to you like, but I just want to work it out, let's just go to marriage counseling. If it really comes to pass that, let me give you an egregious kind of example. If it does come to pass that what you need is a divorce, then just man up, woman up, just be straight and say, it isn't what I want. What I want is a divorce, and I don't want to part as enemies. Let's be friends. We can do this, but state it very clearly, because there is a somewhat nebulous quality to this, in that somebody's going to have to do the straight talking. And if you got to shoot from the hip, you might as well make sure that you take aim. And if it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, accept the responsibility that if you want out of the marriage or relationship and they don't, that you're just going to have to be the bad guy. Don't tell me that you don't want to be the bad guy, because if what you need is going to make you feel like the bad guy, that's what you have to work on all on your own. But if you're the Gemini who's got a spouse that really needs to be told, dude, if you don't bathe but once every other day, I pretty much don't want to go down there and visit you down under, because it's not happening. And I know that that's not the best. I'm grossed out right now. So that's not the best example, but you know what I'm telling you, that if something needs to change, somebody's got to stand up and say, change it, and grab the bar of soap and a washcloth.